On the lines, Winston Shrout. He has a new webinar coming up. It is one that is very close to my heart. It's coming up on Saturday, April 20th, 2013, from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It is called The Court as Executor of Your Estate. Now, why is that so close to my heart? Well, it's because I got to witness what happened to the family that owned the L.A. Dodgers, and because they, the McCourt family, and because they couldn't come to a resolution of their own assets, the court stepped in. And oh my God, did they use those assets against them. It is the worst thing to not be able to mediate and solve your own problems and then ask a fiction to come in and do it for you. Well, maybe this is something that Winston's going to be covering in his upcoming webinar, The Court as Executor of Your Estate. Winston, always so fabulous to speak with you, sir.
Oh, well, good to talk to you, too.
Well, now, you start out by asking the question, what is an asset? And it's something that a person owns. It's an item that is owned and has value. With that, when it's owned, it is within your control. So at what point can the court come in and have a say over what is done with that asset?
Well, that would be a long discussion. The answer to your question is no, only as you allow them to do so. But if they take your asset under force of arms, or they force you to labor or whatever, that's called involuntary servitude. Which for crying out loud, we fought a civil war over that. So why are we getting back into that now? But in any event, one of the considerations that we have to look at is the enforcement of a fictitious judgment, and certain words like enjoinder and all those things come to light when you start talking about the transition from the fiction into reality. And so anyway, when we do the seminar, certainly I'll be covering those things. Want to first of all point out to people that it's happening, that they're stealing your assets, show how they're doing it, and then give some recommendations of how to stop it, put it to an end. Just to kind of kick off this little small interview we're having here, I like to tell a funny story. That be okay?
Go right ahead, sir. Yes.
Well, I'm going to make a point of this story. The story is funny to me. It may not be funny to others who experience some of these things. Anyway, some years ago, it's been, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. I can't remember, it's been so long. Anyway, for some strange reason, the small town I was living in decided they wanted to issue me with a code violation. I thought, great. I'm always happy for stuff like that. I get to go down and talk to folks and have a good time. Now, I don't want to go into that full story. I think I've told that story several times, at different places, because there's quite a bit of technology in there. But the main thing was, because I believe myself to be a humanitarian, and so I like for folks to learn things, especially when I go to court.
Yes, sir.
So anyway, I go on down to this makeshift court here in this small city, small town, and when it came the time for the whole thing to get started, the clerk, stuck her head out, to see if everybody's there or whatever, And so I knew her. I said, hey, I said, she said, can you put me on first? I said, I got some things to do. Can you put me on first? Okay, yeah. She said, I'll do that. Great. I said, great. Now that was, I can guarantee you they never did that again. Anyways, the reason I wanted to get on first was so that everybody there would have the experience of watching me deal with the situation.
Yes.
Like I say, I'm in the mode of being a teacher, an instructor, try to enlighten people. And so I figured, the bigger the audience, the more people I would be able to preach to.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I won't go into all the details, all the stuff. Like I say, there was quite a bit there. But anyway, so I did my spiel and all that kind of thing and had my fun. Then I thought, well, I'll just sit down here and watch the rest of them to see if anything got through. Because what I want to point out when I get done with this story, I want to talk about an important concept that people may not be aware of. And so anyway, I was kind of watching them. Like I said, mine was a code violation, which basically didn't amount to nothing. But anyway, then they started having traffic court, which is always a cool thing. So I was watching all these people. They go up there, and of course the fellow up there that was considered the magistrate, he was a former IRS agent, and he was suffering with a bad case of God syndrome. So he thought he was, just going to rule the roost there. So anyway, I watched all these people. Of course, he didn't rule the roost with me. But anyway, so he's, the different ones that come up on, let's say, a speeding ticket or a stop sign or something like that, And so they come up there, and he said, well, this is, speeding or something, and he say, he says, I could charge you $400 for that. He says, but I'm only going to charge you $200.
Yes.
I swear, this happened at least half a dozen times as I was sitting there before I finally got mad and left. Anyway, so he says, so I said, I could charge you $400. He said, but I'm only going to charge you $200. And invariably, the people would say, thank you, Your Honor.
That's right.
I'm thinking in my mind, I think, why would somebody thank somebody for ripping them off for $200?
That's right.
That don't make any sense to me. Well, they'd watch that crap on television, That's how they thought they were supposed to say things.
Yes.
So anyway, the point that I'm getting to here, and this is a major issue in the country today, not just with the court system, but with the whole attitude of the people in the country and other places. And that has to do with Stockholm Syndrome. Now, my thesis here today is that most of the people in the country are suffering with Stockholm Syndrome. And so let me describe what it is.
Yes.
Way back in the day, when I was a young folk and you were a toddler, we had the interesting case of Patty Hearst.
Yes.
Now, what had happened, Patty had come from a very wealthy family, and she was kidnapped by some elements, and they wanted to hold her for ransom and so forth. But over a period of time, she actually became a part of that group and actually participated with them in a bank robbery. And when they finally caught up with them and got her into custody and so forth, they couldn't figure why, Patty had taken that position. Now, and so we went back again to Stockholm Syndrome, which is simply that people who were captives, let's say, in her case, she was kidnapped, so they were captives. And over a period of time, the captives will start to identify with their captors, will start to have a certain amount of empathy, and to the extent that they will actually participate with their captors, which is exactly what happened in the Patty Hearst situation. Now, I don't know how many people in America woke up to that, but look around. Look around at the situation we find ourselves in. For instance, we've given plenty of evidence. We've had seminars and talks and all kinds of things, and I think a lot of people across the country are very aware of this now.
Yes.
But the American people have been taken captives, and to a large extent, they empathize with their captors, and it's obvious that many of them have now become participants in that captivity, because as I mentioned a while back, approximately 50% of the people, the employable people 50% of the people that have jobs in this country work for the government.
Yes, yes.
Now, what in the world is going on here, folks? So anyway, that is something that seriously needs to be looked at by everybody. Everybody needs to say, why do I do the things that I do? What causes me to have the attitudes I do? What causes me to participate in a system or a function that otherwise I would consider to be immoral and illegal? Why do we do that? And so, maybe I'm making a whole lot of work for the psychologists and psychiatrists here with this, but my observation is that it seems as a nation that we have fallen into a Stockholm syndrome. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does, sir. And also making a lot of business for those psychopharmaceuticals, too. Because they think everything is in a pill. But I think that's kind of part of the issue, too, Mr. Shrout, is that folks believe that their remedies should be quick, where to be able to stand up against these black robes, it does take a lot of study. And it does take the faith in your knowledge of the subject and your strength of conviction to go up against this behemoth. And that's what makes you so special, because, well, you're just a hillbilly, right? But no.
That's it.
Okay. But look at the quake that you put in those knees. And I think that is what you bring, which is so valuable that if I can do it, you can too. And that's why your upcoming webinar coming up on April 20th, and that's a Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., and that is titled The Court as Executor of Your Estate. Well, people want to show up because you're not just talking about your estate. You're actually getting down to the nitty-gritty of the laws that bind up your precious asset, which is yourself.
Yeah. I think, that's the way we kind of entitled the thing. And so, the first thing that everybody has to do is to become aware of the situation, to kind of wake up a little bit. And then once they become awakened to the situation, to educate them upon perhaps, the right way or what's the right way to do things. People have to have a determination and a resolve to take action. And, certainly, hey, if it's only one, one man and woman at a time, that's what we'll do.
Right.
But at some point, the country's got to wake up, because, these ill-intentioned folks, and I'm trying to be as polite as possible, ill-intentioned folks are stripping the country bare.
Yes.
And folks, need to understand. I mean, we've spent a lot of time in the past trying to delineate between equity money, or what's called money of exchange, and money of account. All these things are operating. All these public things that we have going on here operate on a non-cash basis.
Yes.
So why is it that somebody's going to fork over $200? When all that's required is an adjustment of the account.
Right.
And so, listen, folks, stop giving them your hard-earned money.
Yes.
I mean, for crying out loud, if you go out here and work and slave and toil, and hey, for crying out loud, jobs are hard enough to get as it is, so why would you go and give these people your hard-earned money? That don't make any sense to me. So what we're trying to do is to elucidate, to illuminate, and to encourage people to do the right thing.
Well, it sounds like also, Mr. Shrout, that this is really going to get into court procedure, correct?
I'm going to give a little tidbits to folks that they may never have heard before.
Yeah.
We've learned some interesting things here this last month or two, and we got a few experiments going on right now. And so what I intend to do is to, and it's simple. It's simple.
Can you give us a little, because personally,
Yeah.
I have a lovely little court case coming up, and I went in there and argued in the prelim with the judge, arguing that.
No, it has to do with what we've shown in the past.
Yes.
Again, all court cases, civil or criminal, start out as an assumption of debt.
Yes.
And the way we've overcome those things, in many instances, is with a subpoena ducis tecum, which we have elaborated on for a good long while now. But the question is, what shall we subpoena? So folks might want to go and study the concept of cash reserves.
Okay.
As it relates to negotiable instruments.
Okay.
And so I'll give that little hint, give that little clue. when we start thinking about it, it's pretty simple. And like when it finally dawned on me, how that would work, I just started laughing. It took me about 2 days to get over it.
Man, you do have an extra special happy place, Winston.
Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah. When I catch on to something I think is pretty funny, like I say, every time I think about it, it makes me chuckle.
So let's see. For one, you are speaking about the protection of your body politic, and then it comes into talking about your estate and your trust. With a trust, I thought the trusts don't go through probate or anything like that. How can the state come in and become an executor in your trust or your estate?
Well, actually, that's what we had covered. Actually, a couple of times pretty closely. But anyway, the webinar we did on proof of life, that webinar has been reduced to a DVD, and I recommend that.
Good.
The only reason why these pseudo-executors can do what they do is based upon the assumption that you're dead based upon the birth certificate. Now, so there's many ways to overcome that assumption. We had suggested one in the proof of life, which folks can, go onto the website there and check it out. I recommend it. Not just because I, put that particular webinar together, but I recommend the technology, the thought process that's contained therein. A lot of problems can be solved that way.
Good.
And so, like I say, if get out of the fiction, get into the reality of all these things, wake up America, and just realize, hey, yesterday I was stupid. Tomorrow I'm going to be a little bit better educated. And the more educated I become, the more prepared I am to help restore common sense, reason, and logic into the system.
Well, you know what? I don't see how that could be so bad to have a little bit of common sense, and for one, have it coming from the people, or what would you? Not individuals.
Sure.
The people, right? Coming from the people.
If you go, like I said before, people really have to get this into their mind. Is that the only true capital on the planet is the labor of the people and the products that they create by their labor.
Yes.
Now, what's happening when the people go to work, they do their labor, and create, products, what we call capital and so forth and so on. Why in the world would you go and give it to somebody, that says, I could charge you $400, but I'm going to charge you $200 for it. Why would you give them that $200?
I'm telling you.
How hard did you have to work to get that?
Hard.
Why would you voluntarily fork that over?
Well, because then they sit there and put it, they'll triple it with penalties and all these threats and just clog your life with all of their pathology. And so it's great to know, sir, that there is a remedy.
Yeah, I would suggest in preparation for this webinar that certainly folks would want to go and study the concept of Stockholm Syndrome, be familiar with that,
Yes.
And then look inward and see, am I a participant in that?
Right.
And then also to start looking at, a lot of the commercial concepts and so forth that we brought up in the past as it relates to negotiable instrument, cash reserves, and also, as we have spoken in the past about subpoena duces tecum. That's a real handy tool.
Great. Well, let me tell you how you get to be a part of this webinar, darlings. You get to call. If you don't have a computer access, do call 971-333-1005, 971-333-1005. And the best way to participate in Winston's webinars is by doing his attendee package with it. Not only are you there live with Winston, being able to text in questions to him live, you also get a transcript and a DVD copy of this because, you do want to review, you do want to make it a daily part of your life, and so just being with Winston once isn't enough. You can be with him on an ongoing basis by having the transcript and the DVD. So go to www.wssic.com or call 971-333-1005 to choose to do just the webinar itself or to do the much more impacting and relevant webinar attendee package. Such affordable prices for this incredible webinar coming up on the court as executor of your estate. Winston, do you have any closing statements to folks before they go to the computer or give you a call to sign up for this great webinar coming up on April 20th? That's a Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah. The webinars, the system that we use, it's interactive. And one of the benefits of actually being involved in the webinar, at the live event, is that you can send in questions and so forth as it goes along. Now, what I typically do is I'll talk or lecture or whatever for maybe 50 minutes or for an hour. In the meantime, people have been sending questions in, so I'll take a short break and then I'll come back and answer those questions. Live and on the air, and then I'll go to talking again, and then near the end of it, I'll wrap up what I'm doing, and any other questions that have come in, I'll answer them at that time. So actually, attendance at the live portion of this, for many people is very, very beneficial because they can get answers to questions, clarifications, all those kind of things on the spot. So this is one of the one of the advantages of being live in our day and time. We all have all these technologies and so forth, that we can interact with, and it's very, very good experience.